Thanks for staying with us. In our very first story in this edition, the jaw-dropping revelations in the latest Auditor General report into the use of billions of COVID-19 funds are fueling demands for immediate sanctions against government officials responsible for much of the dissipation. The Auditor General found many cases where the total of 21.8 billion cedis mobilized to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in Ghana was simply misused. In one case, the Auditor General flags what he calls a possible case of financial loss totaling $81 million worth of vaccines were paid but never received. We are learning that in spite of this potential loss with the vaccine still not delivered, the government has this year budgeted more funds to import vaccines. More on all that shortly, but first, the immediate past Auditor General, Daniel Domelevo, is demanding sanctions against government officials found to have dissipated the funds. He's been speaking to my colleague Blessed Soga on The Pulse.
As to why there is no disallowance or surcharges recently, I think the best person to answer that should be the Auditor General. Remember, the Constitution under Article 1A7 Clause 7B provides that the Auditor General in the performance of his function can disallow any item, in fact, he used the word may, disallow any item of expenditure which is contrary to law and surcharge the people responsible. And that is what I sought to do, because I thought if there are no consequences for the infractions, the culture of impunity will continue. So that is what I sought to do. And I know for sure that the current Auditor General, Mr. Johnson Asiedu Ekuamwa, is more than capable of doing the same. Maybe he may have some challenges which I am not aware of, but I think that by the time I left office, the mechanisms and the institutional arrangements were in place, which he can use to do same.
Yeah, but you want him to go ahead and surcharge, do you?
Of course, yes. In fact, I was waiting to hear that following this report, these people who are misusing money have been surcharged. Because if we don't do that, we can continuously audit. He can send his people 1,001 times on the field, but we will continue getting these infractions. And even people get emboldened because they think that nothing is going to happen as a result of this audit. So it is my wish and my expectation that those that is saying refund should go ahead, serve them with notice of intention to disallow and surcharge them. If they are not happy, they should go to court. It doesn't matter whether they go to court or they don't go to court. It is quite deterrent. And if they go to court, well, they may win, they may not win. The Auditor General may lose some of the cases, may win some of the cases, but that is the name of the game.
So that's the immediate past Auditor General, Daniel Domelevo, there speaking earlier. My colleague with the research desk, Kofi J. Minta, is joining us now as we scrutinize the Auditor General's report more closely on this. So, Kofi, we know there's an outstanding $81 million to recover, but we are learning that there are some concerns budgeted to spend in the 2023. Walk us through what exactly it is the details are.
Right. So, in fact, we've been gleaning data from the 2023 budget, and we realized that a government in 2023, which is this year, will spend close to 1.8 million Ghana cedis on vaccine procurement. If you look at COVID-19 operations, for instance, also around somewhere 2.8 billion. If you add the two, government has budgeted to spend close to 4.3 billion, million cedis on COVID-19 expenditure in 2023.
Well, you've been taking a look at this particular Auditor General's report and the key findings and the worrying situation that has been raised from it. Walk us through some of the findings.
We've been looking at some difference or discrepancy between what the Finance Minister reported to Parliament on June 2022 and what the Auditor General report is also saying. So if you look at what government mobilized in terms of COVID-19 expenditure was around, Auditor General is saying it's around 19.11 billion, Ghana cedis. And if you look at what the Finance Minister reported was around 18, billion. But the difference around 190 million, Ghana cedis. And the Finance Minister actually listed 9 sources that they got this COVID-19 money from.
Okay.
We're talking about the contingency fund. You can find it on the screen. This as of 2020. That's how much government actually got from the for COVID-19 support. 19.30 billion, Ghana cedis. In 2020, we had close to 6 billion cedis from the IMF. We had World Bank about 1.33 billion Ghana cedis. European Union, 504 million Ghana cedis. And African Development Bank close to 106 million Ghana cedis. The total is around 19.3 million Ghana cedis. But if you look at what the Auditor General reported versus what the Finance Minister gave to Parliament, the Finance Minister said they were able to mobilize 19.3 billion Ghana cedis. Auditor General report is reporting 19.11 billion. If you do the math, the difference is around 190 million Ghana cedis. For the sources, the Auditor General report stated 6 sources, but we see the Finance Minister, when he presented his statement to Parliament, citing 9 sources. The Auditor General report left out, monies that we received from the Korean government, monies that we received from the German government, and government of Ghana's own, funding for the COVID-19 expenditure. So I've also been looking at amounts, realized for the 2 period that we're talking about. So the Auditor General report is quoting 15.7, billion Ghana cedis for COVID-19 related expenditure. They said if you look at the actual expenditure, it's around 12.04 billion Ghana cedis. That's according to the Finance Minister. The Auditor General report is reporting 12.23 billion Ghana cedis. Let's do the math. The math's around the same 190 million, Ghana cedis. Probably it could be that, the Finance Ministry cited 9 sources. The Auditor General's report is currently, outlining just 6 sources. So the difference is 3. That's why probably you may see the 19.3 exactly.
The 19.3.
And also, if you look at expenditure on COVID-19 for 2020, the Auditor General report is reporting 8.66 billion. Finance Ministry 8.12 billion. There's quite some significant difference there. 2021, the same thing happened. Auditor General 3.08 billion. Finance Ministry 3.91 billion. So if you look at the 2 reports, we can see some significant difference between what the Auditor General reported and what the Finance Ministry
reported to Parliament. Okay, Kofi, thank you so much for joining us, as always, breaking down all the figures to us. We have some news coming in. I'll be bringing you details of that shortly when it comes to the domestic debt exchange program.